Hello, today I'll be doing a ranking. This time it'll be for all the Slayer albums. So yeah, this was a ranking that was recommended to me from someone named GhostKid789. Thank you for the recommendation. And I believe there was another person that did recommend me this, like, I don't know, months ago or honestly a long time ago. Can't remember who, but either way, thank you for the recommendation. But yeah, after ranking all these albums, I'll be honest, there's going to be some placements in here that I know are going to tick some people off, especially with where I put World Painted Blood and probably Hell Awaits too, honestly. But keep in mind, this is just my personal ranking. You don't have to agree with it, but of course, feel free to let me know your ranking in the comment section below. But yeah, this will be an interesting ranking. Let's go ahead and dive into it. I'll be focusing on the main studio albums. I won't be talking about any EPs or live stuff or compilations or anything like that. I'll just focusing on the main studio albums. So let's go ahead and start off with what I think is the worst. We'll be going from worst to best. And at the bottom, I said to go with Undisputed Attitudes. Or Undisputed Attitude. And this is an album full of punk rock covers, and punk rock is just not really my thing. I'm just not really a punk music person in general. So this is an album that just doesn't really connect with me. It's just not really for me. Now, I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to include this in the ranking or not, since that this is mostly a covers album, but I decided to include it anyways because why not? But yeah, if you're a fan of this album, more power to you. Definitely nothing wrong with that, but again, this album is just not really for me. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. We're going to go ahead and move to their latest album, Repentless. Still an album all this time later, I'm just not really a fan of. I don't mind the title track. I think it's decent. I don't love it, but again, decent track. Pride and Prejudice, maybe my favorite song on here, but this is an album that I just don't return to all that much. And for me, there were just albums in their discography that I enjoy much more than this. But it does have a few highlights on it, though. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to World Painted Blood. Now, this is an album that does have its share of fans, but this album to me has some of their most forgettable songs. Now, it does have its highlights, though. Some songs that I do enjoy, like the title track, Snuff, and Beauty Through Order. But honestly, the rest of the album, kind of take it or leave it for me. For me, they've done this type of style much better on other albums, and a lot of the songs on here just do not really stick with me. And a lot of this, honestly, I wouldn't rank as some of their best work. Some of it I'd honestly rank as some of their weakest. But again, does have some stuff I like again, the title track and Beauty Through Order and Snuff. But yeah, not an album that's never been one of my favorites. But again, has its moments. Now I'm going to go ahead and move on to arguably maybe their most hated album or their most divisive, and that is Diabolus in Musica. I do understand that most people would put this at the bottom, but honestly, there's some stuff on here that I do enjoy. Now, it does have some sneakers on it, but I think the album starts off fairly strong with the first three songs, Bitter Peace, Death's Head, and Stain of Mind. Now, you do get some nu metal isms in this album, but maybe it's because I'm not a nu metal hater. Maybe that's why I'm not as hard on this album as other fans. But still, I mean, again, some good stuff like the first three songs and Perversions of Pain I do like. But honestly, things start to get pretty lame towards the second half, in my opinion. Point, if I remember correctly, is one of the more decent or okay songs towards the second half, but still another album in their discography that I don't return to very much. But I do like the song Stain of Mind, though. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to Christ Illusion. And the highs on this album, I think, are honestly pretty impressive highs, honestly. Especially certain two songs on here, Catalyst and Cult. Definitely my favorites on the album, but you have other solid songs on here like Flesh Storm, and I like Jihad, if I pronounced that correctly. I do really like that song, but yeah, never been one of my personal favorites. But when it comes to their more modern material, I think this is one of their better albums. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to their album God Hates Us All. And I re-listened to some of the songs on this album recently, and album is actually better than I thought it was. Because during my first listen of this album, or when I heard it for the first time, it just didn't really click with me all that much. It just didn't really stand out very much compared to some of their other albums in their discography. But now, still, I wouldn't rank it as one of their best, but still, there's some pretty good stuff on here. Disciple is honestly a pretty killer track, honestly. God Send Death, I think, is kind of an underrated song. Always been one of my personal favorites off the album. You have some other underrated songs, in my opinion, on here, like Cast Down and Seven Faces. Bloodline, one of the fan favorites on the album. I really like that song. But yeah, this album does have some skippable songs, but still, the highs on this album, I think, are also pretty impressive highs. Like, again, songs like Disciple, Bloodline, and God Send Death. Now let's go ahead and move on to the next album in my ranking, and that is Divine Intervention. So yeah, I got a Japan pressing. The production is definitely interesting on this album. If I remember correctly, they were moving through different recording studios throughout the making of this album. That's just something I've heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but either way, the production on here, not the greatest, but still, the songs that are killer on here, I think, are really killer. Like Killing Fields, the opening song on here. I mean, the drum work on that song, such as towards the beginning of the song, pretty damn good. I do like Paul Bostaph and his time in the band. Fictional Reality, another favorite of mine. Ditto Head, maybe one of the fastest songs on here. I really like that one. Title track's also pretty good. Serenity and Murder, one of the more known songs on the album. I really like that song also. 213, also pretty good. But yeah, there's some songs on here that I think are kind of overlooked in their discography, such as Fictional Reality and 213. Those are really good songs. But yeah, I like Divine Intervention. And now we're going to go ahead and move to a placement in my ranking that might tick some people off. And it is Hell Awaits. I know some people would have this album much higher, but I'm sorry, there's albums in their discography that I personally enjoy more than this one. But still, overall, pretty good album from Slayer, and of course, one of the classics. I mean, At Dawn They Sleep is honestly maybe one of my favorite Slayer songs. I really like that song a lot. Maybe my favorite song on here. The title track is also great, another classic for them. Crypts of Eternity, rhythmically, I really love that song. Praise of Death, another song I really enjoy off of here. But yeah, really good album from Slayer, but again, there's just some albums in their discography that I personally enjoy more. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to South of Heaven. And I'm sure I might get flack for putting this album above Hell Awaits, but hey man, it's my ranking. But yeah, some really good songs. Some of the songs on here, honestly, some of my favorite Slayer songs, like the title track and Silent Scream. I really like Behind the Crooked Cross. That's a song that's going to be one of my favorite Slayer songs. Mandatory Suicide is also really good. But yeah, I'll admit this is maybe one of those albums where you have a stronger first half and maybe a weaker second half, but still, the second half is also fairly solid. I do like Dissonant Aggressor, Read Between the Lies. There's some good stuff on here. Pretty good album, and definitely one of their best, I'd say. And honestly, when it comes to my top 5 Slayer albums, there are placements that can honestly move around within my top 5. But next, in my number 3 spot, we got Rain and Blood. Now, I know some people would probably put this at the top, and I totally understand. I mean, it's a thrash metal classic, and you can't go wrong with a good chunk of this album, or honestly, most of this album. But I will be honest, there's maybe a couple skippable songs on here, but still, definitely a really strong album from Slayer, and definitely earns the place of being ranked as one of their best albums. Angel of Death and Raining Blood, definitely one of their biggest classics. Some of the biggest classics. Postmortem, that's another song that's going to be one of my favorite Slayer songs. I really dig the riff work in that song. Altar of Sacrifice, Jesus Saves. Definitely many classics on this album, and of course one of their best, and I'm sure many fans would agree with me on that. Now we're going to go ahead and move to my number 2, and it is Show No Mercy. Now, there might be a good chance that I might enjoy this album more than some people. I mean, I know some people might have this album lower in their ranking because of the production and just how raw it sounds, but there are a lot of songs on here that I honestly really enjoy, and some songs in here that are honestly some of my favorite Slayer songs, such as "Evil Has No Boundaries" and of course "Antichrist" and "Black Magic." But even some of the lesser known songs on this album I think are pretty damn good and honestly kind of underrated in their discography, like Cryonics and Die by the Sword. Tormentor 2, that's the song that's maybe contender for maybe being one of my favorites on the album. Yeah, overall, a pretty enjoyable listen, I'd say, and overall, a pretty solid debut. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and move on to my number one, and it is their album Seasons in the Abyss. I mean, when it came to figuring out what my number one is, it had to be this album. Definitely an easy choice for me. I mean, Seasons in the Abyss, the title track. Love that song, probably in my top 5 Slayer songs, but also some other songs that I really enjoy. Spirit in Black. That song might be in my top 10, maybe, of my favorite Slayer songs. Skeletons of Society, War Ensemble, Blood Red, Dead Skin Mask. So many classics, so many great songs. And most of this album, or a good chunk of this album, is honestly some of my favorite work from the band. Really good album from Slayer, and easily one of their best, and personally, my favorite. So yeah, that is my ranking of the Slayer albums. Let me know your thoughts on my ranking. Let me know what placements you agree or disagree with. Let me know, of course, your ranking in the comment section below. Let me know some of your favorite albums or songs from the band and all the good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like. Subscribe. Have a nice day and take care.